Welcome to Betting on Success, a podcast that dives into the future of gaming with a focus on cashless technology. Hosted by Mark Morton, aka Morty. From cashless innovations to incredible career stories, this is where gaming professionals stay ahead. Betting on Success is brought to you by your friends at Marker Tracks and Coin, leading the way in cashless gaming.
Hi, my name is Mark Morton, and welcome to Betting on Success. One of the things that I love most about being in the gaming industry in my career is having the opportunity to work around some of the best and greatest leaders in the industries, guys like Gavin Isaacs, Dick Adderall, Matt Wilson. Well, today I have the honor of having someone who I believe, when her career is all said and done, will be held in the same esteem as some of those icons. So welcome, Niaz Nejad.
Hi, Mark.
Nice
good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Ready to have some fun?
I am. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so I can't resist this opening comment. You were raised in the 51st state in the Union, is that right?
I am Canadian.
You are Canadian, correct?
We are currently still a sovereign nation.
Exactly, okay.
And as my friends in Canada would say, we will never surrender. Yes, I am Canadian. I've lived there my entire life. I'm Vegas local now for the last several years, which I'm very proud to be. But you may hear me throw out an A every once in a while in our conversation.
I'd expect that today. Okay, so tell me some things about your family growing up in Canada.
Yeah, so I'm from Alberta, which is just north of Montana, and it's very cold there in the winters.
I've been there then.
Yeah, you sure have. I remember you being there with your big puffy jacket.
Exactly.
A little excessively puffy for the temperature, but I appreciated your effort.
Thank you. Good effort, right? Yep.
Yeah. My parents were amazing parents. I have a younger sister, 3 years younger than me, so it's the four of us growing up in Edmonton, Alberta, and which is where I went to school and university for my undergrad degree, and then I popped over to Ontario to do my MBA at Queen's University there. So predominantly lived in Alberta my whole life, lived in Toronto for a couple years for work, but just surrounded by lots of great family and just a lot of sense of culture and lots of love in our family and lots of laughter.
So from our conversations earlier, family is key to you, right? I mean, they were very big in who you are today. Tell me a little bit about that. I found that very interesting.
Absolutely. And I'm warning you now, I may get a little emotional when I talk about my dad who passed in 2000. We need some tissues. He passed in 2009. But my dad was an entrepreneur, and he was absolutely my first mentor and still my primary mentor. He taught me a lot about having integrity, about having respect for people, and always being respectful and true to yourself. He taught my sister and I to focus on what our goals and objectives were and to find the way to get to the end goal with integrity, with respect, and just really doing what's right. So he taught us that lesson, and that's a lesson I've carried throughout my entire life, personally and professionally.
Well, I get emotional just like you do.
Yeah.
I lost my dad about 18 years ago.
Sorry.
So, and he was the biggest person in my life as well. So I love to hear that.
Yeah.
You're married?
I'm married, second time now, but I'm married to a wonderful man. He's a retired police officer. He did 25 years with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and he retired a couple years ago. So now he is a full-time parent to our dogs, our two dogs, and he's married to a sugar mama. So, it's not bad for him right now.
There you go. Pretty good life, right?
I think it's a good life for him.
So has he made the trip or the move to Vegas yet? Or is he's got to be coming, kicking and screaming if he's coming?
You know what? He is here, but I'd say he's not permanently here. We still have our house back in Canada, so he does go back and forth, but he loves Vegas.
Yeah. And let me ask you another question. You're an extremely hard worker. I've known that for many, many years. What do you like to do outside of your work life?
I'm a big foodie.
Okay.
So I love trying new restaurants, and what better place to live than Las Vegas?
No question.
There's no shortage of great restaurants here. And my husband and I both love country music. So if there's an opportunity to go see somebody playing anywhere around Vegas, near Vegas, we'll do that.
So I've got to ask somebody that's moved from Canada where hockey is the national sport.
Yes, sir.
Have you become a Vegas Golden Knight fan?
I have been a Vegas
girl.
You know what? Even before before I moved here. I got to be honest with you. I will say Edmonton Oilers #1. That'll never change.
Yeah.
But the Golden Knights a very close #2.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, I love hockey.
So you mentioned your folks and your family as being influential in your life. Anybody else during your younger years? Typically, when you're a great leader, there was a lot of people involved in that formation.
Yeah.
Anybody at the younger age that had the impact?
I would say more so in my first part of my career. Right after I graduated from university, my first career was in banking. So I worked for one of Canada's largest chartered banks. And my boss at the time, I guess he was my boss's boss's boss, but I really looked up to him. His name was Dave Cross, and I really considered him a mentor. And during my tenure at Bank of Montreal, as I moved up, I eventually started reporting into him as a branch manager. He was the area manager. And he also just taught me essentially what my dad had taught me. He was living those values in real time professionally, and I was watching it. And I learned a lot from him, and he really guided me and mentored me. I remember going to him and saying, what's it going to take for me to run this place? And he's like, you tell me what you think it's going to take to run this place. And he really challenged me and asked me a lot of questions. And he was the first one that taught me about the concept of true north. What do you want to do? What's important to you? And figure out a path to get there. And sometimes there's multiple roads to get you there, which is okay. But as long as you don't lose sight of, your end goal.
So I started the show by saying I believe you're a great leader, which I truly in my heart do believe that. Tell me some of the values that you think are key to being a great leader. Yeah,
well, one of them you know very well.
I do.
And I'm very honored that you remembered that. And these are not things that I've invented. These are all things I've leveraged from mentors or places that I've had the pleasure of working in the past. #1, for sure, is be true to yourself. Absolutely #1. That's not negotiable. Having integrity is another one. My favorite one, which is having a high say-do ratio.
I love that.
And that's just, and for people that don't know, it's about doing what you say you're going to do. And that should always be a 1-to-1. If I tell you I'm going to call you at 10 o'clock, I'm going to call you at 10 o'clock. And if I can't, I'll let you know that I can't call you and why, and when I'll call you again. So it's just having that respect for other people and having a high say-do ratio. So those, I think, are the most important. And then put the work in. Nothing comes easy. Personally or professionally, you've got to put the work in. Those are the core tenets of what I aspire to be as a leader and what I share with anybody that I've had the pleasure of working with.
Well, it's funny you brought up the say-do ratio because my kids and anybody that's worked with me always heard that. You inspired me about 10 years ago when you said it for the first time, and it's never left me.
Thank you.
If you walk next door on our wall, you're on our wall, but it's not actually you, but it's a Niazism. Is that a word?
A Niazism?
Okay. Niazism, I guess.
I might trademark that one. I like it.
That'd be good, right? But I think it's critical because a lot of people think of integrity as being honest. But that's not what you're saying, right? It's actually doing what you said you're going to do, and I love that.
Yeah.
So you have this great early part of your career, and then for some reason you say, I'm going to move into gaming. Mm-hmm. So tell me how that happened.
Yeah. So I started in banking, and then I moved into Silicon Valley software company, and then I had the opportunity to come into gaming. I had no idea that there even was a gaming industry. I didn't compute in my head who's running casinos, where do these slot machines come from? I didn't know anything about it. And so I had a recruiter call me and said we'd like you to talk to somebody about working for a company called AGLC. And I was like, AG who? I had no idea. And they're like, you're from Alberta? Yes. Do you drink liquor? Absolutely. And they do liquor and gaming. And I was like, what is gaming? And they're like, gambling. Anyways, long story short, I end up going for an interview, and I meet the most inspiring female executive, a pioneer in the gaming industry named Muriel Grimble. She was looking to hire someone for the director of gaming position for Alberta. The gentleman that was there, Jeff Whiten, also an amazing human being, had moved on to a different role in the the organization. And so, long story short, I end up getting the role. I start working in the gaming industry, and 13 years later, I look back and I'm like, where have you been all my life as an industry? Like, I had no idea. And I've never looked back. It's one of the best industries I've ever worked in. And for me, working in banking, Silicon Valley software, now the gambling industry, and we'll talk a little bit about another short stint that I had in another industry. But at the end of the day, the core values are the same. My leadership style never changed. Business 101, it was applicable everywhere. Do right by the customers, lead with integrity, leaders at all levels. All of those things you just rinse and repeat as you go from industry to industry because it's so applicable.
So I looked at your bio, and I it says warehouse. You didn't start on a forklift or anything like that.
I didn't.
You didn't.
That would not be a good idea.
No, I didn't think so. Tell me, because I know you raised up the ladder very quickly. So tell me how you got there and what steps you took.
Yeah, so I did start as the director of gaming products, and then I noticed there was quite a few synergies between our gaming products team at AGLC and the warehouse team. The warehouse team was the one that would buy the machines from you guys, and then we would assemble them, repair them, ship them out, etc. So we had a full-on warehouse at AGLC. And so I convinced Muriel, my boss, that these two were synergistic and they should really be under one leader. And that's how I ended up getting gaming products and the warehouse. And then within a couple years, Muriel was retiring and there was an opportunity for the vice president of gaming, so running all of the gambling in the province. And so I threw my name into that ring, and I was lucky enough to get selected. And I had another great mentor, the CEO of the time, Bill Robinson, who was like, did a rotation. He's like, you're up first to me. He's like, you're up first, 3 months, then we're going to switch to somebody else. He's like, don't screw it up. I was like, I won't. And so I got into it. In the first month, he calls me in his office and he's like, I want to talk to you about it. And I was like, oh, maybe my 90 days is getting cut short. And he's like, you got it. I said, I got what? And he's like, you got the role. I said, yeah, I'm going to do it for 90 days. He goes, no, you're permanently going to be the VP of gaming, which was one of the most joyful times of my life professionally. And I had a great team. Like it takes a vision, as you know, right? Yeah. And you knew the team very well. And so we worked hard to do what was right, hit our financial objectives, do right by the players, do right by our operator partners, and have a little fun along the way.
You had a little fun, too.
We had a little fun.
You had a little fun. So gaming in Canada is a little bit different in how it works, right? It's government run.
That's right.
And it's a different animal than what you see down here in the States.
That's exactly right. And it's a little bit different province by province, as you know. But in Alberta specifically, in most provinces, the government or a crown commercial corporation, which is AGLC, we would buy the slot machines. We own the machines. We own the central system. The technicians were ours. We were also, we were slots, VLTs, lottery, bingo, and then I started online gambling with the team as well in 2020. So those were all our assets and our business that we ran, but the bricks and mortar casinos were privately run. So it was a little different, a little nuanced in the province, but essentially it's a government-run model, and all the revenues that are earned, the profits, go back to the government to fund roads, hospitals, schools, and support. At the time was 13,000 charities in that province.
Yeah, you guys did a phenomenal job up there, and I'll tell you,
thank you.
I loved that location or that area to cover because you got to meet some really great people because you specifically called on traditionally one group, which I loved, and how we became friends.
Yes, right.
So now you're running that. Now you have another step you're going to take.
That's right, an unexpected step.
So tell me about that one.
Yeah, so Canada decides that marijuana should be legal federally. Yeah. So it should be legal no matter where you are in Canada. And so they made it legal, and they said on October 17th, 2018, it'll be legal, and every province has to figure out how to do it on their own. Like what the model's going to look like, where you're going to buy the weed from, just stand up an entire what was an illegal business, still illegal to some, for some, and make it legal. And so at the time, I'm running a $1.4 billion gaming business. We have 20,000 EGMs in the province. We've got lottery, we've got bingo. We're about to start online gambling. And my new CEO at the time says, can you help out with cannabis? Can you do cannabis? I said, no, I don't do cannabis. Thank you. I don't smoke. No, he's like, no, can you actually start the business? I'm like, what does start the business mean? I'm like, I don't even know where to start. And he's like, I just need you to figure out how to make this a profitable business. It's illegal now. By October 17, 2018, figure it out. And I was like, okay, we have like no team. So I handpicked a few gaming people, reached out to Deloitte who helped me out. And in 7 months, which felt like about 27 years, we took what was nothing and turned it into a full-fledged legal business where we were buying incredible amounts of marijuana from licensed producers and bringing it into a warehouse, which I could not disclose the address to at the time. Secret warehouse. And licensing retailers and selling marijuana to them. And we created an online store, albertacannabis.com, where you could buy weed online and I would deliver it to your house. Not me personally, but, folks that worked with us. Like, it was just the most insane and unbelievably rewarding time of my life, like in 7 months. And we went live at midnight with the website. And we were all waiting, like 7 months of work. We're like, okay, hit the big red button. We go live and the site goes down. And we're all just like, I burst into tears. I was like, 7 months of this. We got it working in about 20 minutes, but it was unbelievable. Like actually negotiating with marijuana producers of how many tons I'm going to buy from you and how much an ounce. And it's just like, I know everything now about indica, sativa, THC, CBD. You want to know something? I'm your girl. I can answer it for you.
Well, it's funny because I don't look at you and see Pablo Escobar in any way. Right? The female Pablo Escobar is not who you are.
I have been called Griselda by a few, but, we'll just leave it at that.
And your husband's a cop, too, so that had to be...
That was...
And yet,
so for a short period of time, I was the largest legal drug dealer in Canada. Short period of time. And my husband was a police officer. And so at the time, our friends were like, oh, the cop and the crook. And I was like, okay, but I'm legal, so technically am I a crook?
Okay.
But it was a fun time.
Yeah. So you mentioned you thought that was one of your biggest accomplishments during that period of your life.
Yeah.
Other things that stand out during that period of your growth in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about tenacity because that's another thing that I think is really important as a leader. So in Alberta, online gambling wasn't legal, although it was legal in other parts of the country. And it was 20 years of AGLC asking the government for permission to get online gambling allowed in the province. And so one of the things when I got there, I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, our team is going to do this. And it took 5 years, but we finally got the approval and we went live and it's been super successful for them. And now they're going to open up the licensing model like Ontario did and really allow, the BetMGMs and the DraftKings to come in and offer their solutions direct to consumers.
That's awesome.
So it's great. It's a great progress. Yeah.
So you've had tons of success. Tell me some of it couldn't have been smooth the whole time, right?
It was not smooth the whole time.
So major obstacles that you overcame that you're most proud of?
Well, the first one is I never was a good public speaker.
You're doing great today.
Well, thank you.
You're doing awesome.
It's practice, right?
Yeah.
So my first opportunity to public speak was when I joined Intuit, and I was the Quicken Business Unit Manager, and it was day 3, I think, and there was a massive town hall of like 400 to 500 people in this big gymnasium, and I had to go and talk about the Quicken Business Unit. I'd been there 3 days, and I had never public spoken before, and I will never forget this because it still echoes in my head. I was so nervous, I kept banging my foot on the stage, and it was echoing, and like everybody could hear it, and that's all I could hear. So somehow I got through it. It was horrific. I bombed it. It sucked. If it was me, I would have fired myself that day. And I went back and I sat down after one of my colleagues who crushed it and had been there for 20 years and is like an amazing speaker. I sat down and I was like, just like death would be welcome right now. Please, God, take me now. And he leans into me, he goes, it wasn't bad. And I looked at him, I'm like, But seriously, I'm like, it was horrible. I know. And it was like, at that point, I was like, I have got to master this. I have got to get better at this. And so I just kept practicing and doing Toastmasters. And now it's like, it feels really comfortable for me and I enjoy it.
Yeah. You're very good too at it, by the way.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
So let me ask you a question. So you've got this great career. You're from Canada. You have your family up there, everything that's important to you. So now all of a sudden you go, I want to leave this to go do this in the U.S. with a gaming manufacturer. How did you get to Aristocrat? What drove that decision? Yeah,
it's a great question. I mean, at the end of the day, I had what I believe was, what I'm just fortunate, it was a phenomenal career at Alberta Gaming and Liquor and Cannabis Commission now. And I had really honestly crossed off like all the things I had hoped to achieve there. We had a lot of success there. We had a lot of learnings and a lot of like, scraped knees and bruises. That's just like part of any industry. And then I got cannabis on top of it. And I was like, there's two things. One, I've accomplished everything I wanted to do here. Two, I need to get out of the way so that my team can elevate and move up. And three, I really wanted to get back into private sector, because private sector and being an entrepreneur to some degree, but being back in the private business is really where my heart is where my passion is. And I love the industry. So I'm like, I don't want to leave the industry because this is the best industry on the planet, in my opinion. And I just had an opportunity at that time to work with Aristocrat. And I was excited to work with them. They were a great company to work with. I started as a VP of Business Development and Sales Operations, and then I moved into an SVP of Marketing role for them. And just great people, great products, as you know, and just a really wonderful introduction for me into this side of the industry on the manufacturer's side. And it was fun to come to Vegas. I loved Vegas. I kind of felt like I'd been here enough that I was like, I would really like to live here. And in fact, the first time I stepped foot in Las Vegas was 2011 G2E, 2 weeks into my new role at AGLC. And I remember turning to Muriel and saying, I could totally live here. I'd never been to Vegas before. And it was like just kind of fortuitous that I ended up living here with Aristocrat.
Okay, so I got to ask another question.
Okay.
This is the ones I hate because they're so typical of these. So, from an innovation and technology standpoint, what do you see next for the gaming industry?
Well, first of all, let's talk about what we already are seeing right now within our four walls. Our industry is very innovative in general. Like I would say the gaming industry is a tech industry.
Yeah.
We're very high technology. You talk about cashless. You talk about the things you guys are doing, right?
Yeah.
Marker tracks, coin, etc. Like these are all ways to help it make it easier for players to play and have a good time in the casinos. And it also helps operators become more profitable, right? Help drive operational efficiencies, help drive more insights, what players are doing, whether it's carded play or anonymous play. These are all things we're doing as an industry that are really going to help take us to the next level, right, in the gaming industry.
So there's a young woman or a young man entering the business. Mm-hmm. They aspire to be someone like you, right? So, quick question: what do you think they need? If you were to mentor somebody and said, do this or follow this path, what would you tell them?
One of the greatest gifts about being a leader, and you know this because you do this very well, is to pay it forward, right? Which is like help the next generation, the next up and comers, be better, even be better than maybe you are at the pinnacle of your career. What I always tell folks that are asked, like, how did you get to where you are? Or my question to my old boss at the bank is like, what do I need to do to run this place? Number one is be very deliberate on what you want. Have that goal, set your true north, and then figure out with mentors, by asking questions, by learning, by digging in deep, by putting in the work, how to get there. And sometimes your path may change. Maybe I wanted to be a pilot when I was a kid, which I did.
Right.
But now I'm in the gaming industry, So it's okay for your goals to change, but keep the core of what you're trying to do and your integrity and your high say-do ratio consistent, no matter where you go.
Well, you brought up tenacity, which is something I think is critical, right? I mean, as you try to drive through the obstacles that you see every day, and you're younger, it's difficult. So I totally agree with that mentality.
Yeah.
All right, so let's ask some serious questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, serious questions. Okay, so what sort of legacy would you want to leave behind when you leave the business?
Can I share a quote with you?
Yes.
So when it's kind of like what would you want someone to write on your tombstone?
Yeah.
Which I want to be cremated, by the way. I don't want to be buried. Just putting that out in the public sphere. But the quote that I love is from Maya Angelou, and it says, my goal is not merely to survive. My goal is to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style.
I love that.
Like, that is what I want my legacy to be.
Well, you are living your legacy, Niaz.
You are too kind.
No, you are.
Thank you, my friend.
I thank you very much for being here today, and thank everybody for joining us. And again, Niaz,
my pleasure.
You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of Betting on Success. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Stay tuned for more insights from gaming industry leaders. We'll see you next time.